Telescopes are time machines. When we look at a faraway galaxy, we are looking into the past millions of years.
And that's just fun to know, to have that moment like what Galileo must have felt like when he saw that those things weren't just points of light.
I remember getting my first telescope, unpacking it, and just being all excited, and then seeing the rings of Saturn for the first time. I was hooked.
Looking up and seeing, wow, what's all that going on? Those were the planets. It just happened to be one of the years that they were in alignment. Whoa, really?
For me, it began on a hilltop in Pennsylvania in the summer of 1967. I was a Boy Scout. I was at Boy Scout camp with all my buddies, and at Boy Scout camp you try to get a few merit badges. One of the merit badges offered was astronomy. That was my introduction, and I just got in the habit of looking up.
The Grand Rapids Amateur Astronomical Association and its members have been looking up for the past 70 years. The GRAAA and those who are simply curious about the universe come to Kissing Rock Hill in Lowell, Michigan to experience the cosmos.
This beautiful place that we're sitting near in such a beautiful natural setting out in the country is the site of the James C. Veen Observatory. And it didn't just happen.
In the mid-1950s, co-founder and first president of the GRAAA, James C. Veen, helped create the first planetarium at the original Grand Rapids Public Museum. Later, with support from the Public Museum, planning began on an observatory which would break ground in 1965. What followed was 5 years of construction done almost entirely by association members.
And that's where I met all of these really motivated individuals. And then this great group of young people, mostly high school kids, who were joining the group and then became the workhorses for the construction of this observatory. Block companies would donate us blocks, but we had to come and haul them. I was actually one of the block layers. I learned a lot about block laying, and I can point to parts of the building where I was just learning that I'm not very proud of, but I can point to parts of the building that look pretty good because I'd had about 4 years experience at it. One of the first personalities I became acquainted with and came to admire greatly when I came here, I think a manual arts teacher by the name of Percy Hawkins. And he was a people person. Being one of the leaders in the group, he was very inspirational to the young people in the work crews. They learned a lot about life from working on a scaffold with Percy Hawkins. We created a telescope here in his honor, which is our largest instrument here at the observatory. It is also very much in keeping with Percy, easy to use, accessible to everybody, and primarily a visual scope. You move it around by hand. It doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles, but it's incredibly effective.
On June 21st, 1970, the observatory was completed and dedicated to the association's co-founder and first president, James C. Veen, who sadly passed before construction began. Over the next 55 years, the Veen Observatory has become more than just a place to look at the stars.
In building up, our organization, our association, and the situation that we find ourselves in is that it can satisfy a wide range of interests. And those who have an interest in just being outdoors, we can help with that. Those who like, participating as a group and doing something, we can offer opportunities for that. So the thing that has been, good about the observatory is that, we have the ability to use a lot of different talents that people bring. Because of the special place that we're at, with the 12 acres of woods, it involves a lot of property maintenance, Someone later has the idea, let's put some walkways into our woods. So we did that project, clearing the space up here, provided for more parking, provided a green space where we have a fire pit, and we had the open space, and someone else said, well, I'd be willing to donate a pavilion, have a spot for that. Let's do some outdoor activities that are not just nighttime based, but can also be daytime based.
The first job of a telescope is to gather light, and the aperture tells us the more aperture, the more light it's going to start to work with. This one is a 16-inch telescope. That is the aperture. It's a schmidt-cassegrain scope, which means that the light does a bounce. It comes in, there is a concave mirror, kind of a donut, because there's a hole in the middle of it that reflects the light to a central mirror in the center of the collector plate that shoots it back down. So the light does a bounce. And then we put various eyepieces to give us different degrees of magnification. And that's where people bring their eye, and that's where all of that light that has been gathered and focused gives way to an experience of a direct observation of some marvelous object in the sky.
In 2024, the Thomas Strickwerda Annex was completed, which expanded the capabilities of the association, allowing users of all experience levels an opportunity to view and capture a wide range of objects.
We're currently in what we call it the Strickwerda Annex, but what it is essentially is if you were to take a 2.5 car garage and then saw the sides of the roof and then put it on tracks, so that we have essentially the size of a garage, but the roof rolls off. And so this becomes what we call a roll-off observatory. And it addresses one of the issues that we always have. If you have an observatory, you have a dome. Problem is, with a dome, you can only have one instrument. When we do something like a roll-off, we can have 4 instruments. We can actually probably wedge in a 5th. And as you can see by the styles and types of equipment, that's another thing that we want to do, is to be able to show people all the kinds of things that astronomy can offer. What you discover when you get into astronomy, and especially into the equipment, is that every piece of equipment has its sweet spot. There are scopes like this large one here that are best for the dim objects out there. And big, in telescope terms, by the way, is the diameter, not the length. But then we have some, speaking of, the ones that are long and small, they're best for viewing planets and some of the bright objects because they bring it in very crisp. Then we have things like the one behind me. It's a smaller scope. It is actually designed to look at the sun. It has a special filter on it to filter out 99.9% of the light. And the 0.1% that comes through, allows you to see sunspots and flares on the surface of the sun. Each telescope has its appropriate use, and there are those that have lots of automation and some that are very much manual, very much old school.
One of the advantages of being a member of this association, every time I come out here, I always learn something. There are some very knowledgeable people with deep experience in this field, and people are so generous with sharing their knowledge. Hobby is almost not a good enough word for it. It's a passion.
Using that passion and dedication, many members went on to successful careers, including Tom Strickwerda, whom the Roll-Off Observatory is named after.
The thing that sets Tom apart is that he was a key person in the space program. He became a physicist at the Applied Physics Laboratory at Johns Hopkins University. We always knew he was a very talented guy and that he was going to go places, but we didn't quite realize that his work was going to go all the way to Pluto. He turned out to be the lead guidance engineer for a team which had to plan and execute the trajectory for that very successful probe to Pluto in 2015, I believe. And he always used to say, the GRAAA had a lot to do with what I accomplished.
These things build on themselves. The more that people participate, the more that creates an inviting and welcoming atmosphere for those who are on the edges to come in to this. So for that reason, it's been very invigorating to have that.
As soon as I was 16 years old, I was a regular observatory user. And it is such an amazing privilege and what an amazing resource for a kid who's 16 to not just be able to go and look through telescopes, but to get a key and have permission to go there and use these things. That I would take pictures in the early morning before school. There's something very magical about having the privilege of showing somebody Jupiter or Saturn for the first time and watching their face come down from the telescope, and the kind of excitement.
The most fun that I have is being there when somebody maybe looks at the moon or Jupiter or Saturn. Those are what I call the OMG objects. When somebody looks at the moon for the first time through a telescope and they see along the terminator, the line between light and dark, between day and night on the moon, that illuminates all of those craters, they often say, oh my God. And just to be there present for that moment is a privilege. And I know that they'll never look at the moon the same way again. Saturn's ring and the craters on the moon make clear that these are three-dimensional real objects in the sky. And it's just a privilege to be there when people have that moment. It never gets old for me.
As soon as you are willing to, raise your hand and sign up, you can help run the visitors' nights and get to learn how to use the scopes, and you can use them on your own. And I don't know of another amateur association with that kind of resources, that such a great community, such a great observatory.
A personal project of mine is that I love it when people can walk away with a sense of the sky in 3 dimensions. Instead of looking at the sky as the ancients did, like a dome with stars and planets and mysterious objects stuck on this dome, to be able to see it as an array of objects near and far.
If it weren't for Jim and Evelyn Marin, who owned all of this property that we're sitting on right now, and permitting a upstart group of astronomers to literally take over a section of their property and build the observatory, was really a step of faith on their part. Their mark cannot be underestimated. It was giving us this opportunity that may never have come if it weren't for their generous offer. This is a natural beauty center. It is a place where you can come and receive spiritual fulfillment just by being here and looking up into the sky and contemplating the vastness of it all, whether with the naked eye or with one of these big telescopes.
Being out in the woods, here, and especially out here at night, out here during the day and listening to all the, the wildlife. I do take joy in just being out in this area, and my dog does too. So, so both of us take a lot out of it.
I will forever be grateful to my friend Mike Murphy, who's a member of the club. I ran into Mike, and I was just walking home one night, and I bumped into this guy who had the exact same telescope that I was thinking of buying. It was good old Mike Murphy. And he encouraged me. Not only did he encourage me, he invited me to join and brought me out one night. That was my entry point. The message I would send out to people is, don't wait for your Mike Murphy. Bring yourselves out here on a public night. Get an eye full of what's up there, and maybe you'll get the bug.
Honestly, I think it's a wow. I'm reminded of, when I'm looking out at the sky, it's so just awe-inspiring. I'm reminded of flying home once, and I was sitting there looking out the window. The person sitting next to me asked what I was looking at, and I said, oh, there's Mars there. And And he was so excited because he was going to get off the plane and see his son and going to say, hey, that's Mars. And that's just fun to know. I wish I could say my interest was more scientific, but sure do appreciate looking up.